Yep. I declare open this public hearing of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Public Works for the inquiry into Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications, Sports and the Arts, proposed fit-out of new leased premises at 1 City Hill, Canberra City. The committee's role, as defined by the Public Works Committee Act of 1969, is to consider and report on the purpose and need for the proposed works, the most effective use of public money that can be made in carrying out the works, and the present and prospective public value of the proposed works. In accordance with the committee's resolutions of the 31st of July 2025, this hearing will be broadcast on the Parliament's website, and the proof and official transcripts of proceedings will be published on the Parliament's website. I also remind members of the media who may be present or listening on the web of the need to fairly and accurately report the proceedings of the committee. I'm Tony Zappia, the chair of the committee, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Dave Smith, member for Bean, ACT.
Ash Amber, the member for Barton.
Andrew? Or was Andrew gone? Okay. Tanya?
Tanya Lawrence, member for Havelock, Western Australia.
Thank you. If any committee members are participating via video conference or chorus call, I remind you to mute your microphones when not speaking, and if on chorus call, to give your name each time you speak in order to assist witnesses and Hansard. Participants on chorus call are reminded not to take another call or put their phones on hold during the teleconference, as this may cause interference with the teleconference. I now welcome representatives of the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications, Sports and the Arts to give evidence. For the Hansard record, would you please each state your name and the capacity in which you appear before the committee?
Sure.
Ms. Mrs.
Good
Bridger.
afternoon, thank you, Chair. I'm Marie Bridger, the Chief Operating Officer for the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications, Sport and the Arts.
Susan Charles, I'm the First Assistant Secretary for Enabling Services.
Michael Leaper, Project Director for Future Workplace Canberra.
Paul Middleton, Project Manager for the Department.
Stefan Joubert, Principal of Cost Management for TSA O'Reilly.
Zoe Taylor, representing Cox Architecture as the Department's designer.
Thank you. Although the committee doesn't require you to give evidence under oath, I should advise that these hearings are formal proceedings of the Parliament, and consequently they warrant the same respect as proceedings of the Parliament itself. Giving false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as a contempt of Parliament. I now invite you to make a brief introductory remark or a statement if you wish, and then we'll proceed to some questions.
Thank you, Chair. I will just make a very brief opening statement. The Department is currently on track to deliver a precinct model where the Department will consolidate its 4 expiring leases into 2. Stage 1, which is building 1 of the precinct model, 7 London Circuit, remains on track for completion in mid-May this year, ready for occupancy by lease commencement date of 1 July 2026. And this aligns with lease expiries at 2 of the Department's current buildings on the 30th of June, and that is what we call the Alinga and Northbourne buildings. This submission focuses on Stage 2, which is Building 2, 1 City Hill, offering 13,818 square metres across levels 1 through 6. The strategy is to accommodate approximately 1,257 staff and contractors. Finalising the precinct model delivers the lowest overall risk and cost profile, ensures alignment with critical lease end timelines, and positions the Department to meet its long-term Canberra accommodation strategy effectively. This includes delivering a fit-for-purpose fit-out and enhancing the building's sustainability performance. The Nishi Buildings lease, which is one of the buildings that staff will move from for Stage 2, its lease expires in December 2027. Its fit-out is now obsolete and would require a substantial staged upgrade over 24 to 30 months. And noting we would still be occupying the building throughout any fit-out, it would create prolonged disruption and expose the Department to significant cost uncertainty due to likely latent conditions. In addition, major base building upgrades, including the end-of-trip facilities, are required for the premises to meet the Department's accommodation needs. Consolidation to the precinct model, that is 7 London Circuit and 1 City Hill, enables a reduced footprint aligned with the Commonwealth Property Management Framework, improving sustainability, collaboration and cost effectiveness. The estimated total budget for the project is $46.4 million. The project's construction will be managed by the department's client-side project manager, TSA Riley, and will encourage local industry participation in accordance with the Commonwealth procurement requirements. The department has followed a structured, multi-phase consultation process involving staff surveys, workshops and feedback sessions to inform the workplace design. Governance bodies, staff committees and networks, including representation from all divisions, diversity groups, as well as the union, have provided input throughout. Additional engagement has included First Nations consultation and collaboration with operational teams to ensure the design reflects diverse needs and supports a modern, inclusive and adaptable workplace. Subject to parliamentary approval, construction is forecast to commence in July 26 with a completion by May 27. Occupancy is planned to commence shortly thereafter and aligns with the Nishi lease expiry at the end of 2027. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to present. That concludes my opening statement.
Mrs Bridger, thank you very much for that, and thank you to you and your team for the earlier out-of-session briefing that you provided to us. I note your department, or the department you're here representing, is a very large department. Are the staff that are proposed to work in this new building staff members who represent each of the various sections of your department, that is infrastructure, transport, regional development, communications, sports and the arts? Or is it only a sector of those?
So let's just call each of those industry sectors per se a group.
Yep.
So we don't have members from each group spread across both buildings. We were keen to have teams that were working closely together, situated as closely as possible. That being said, we're conscious that some groups work more closely together than others, and we've also tried to keep them together. So we won't, for example, have sport people in both buildings or communications people in both buildings. We will, however, have corporate staff across both buildings. Essentially, they provide services to the entire department, so we thought it appropriate that they be reflective in both buildings.
So if, for example, a future government was to separate communications, sports and the arts from the others, would that require staff to be relocated?
Of course, that is dependent on how the government would decide to split the department. But going into this model, we are conscious, having been a department who has been mogged many times previously, that there is a likelihood of that. So we have factored MOG likelihood into the design, but ultimately we have designed and leased the buildings cognizant of our current state.
And could I ask this question? How did you arrive at the process by which this is now the building you are going to occupy? And was this building and the adjacent building to it available when you also took up the lease at 7 London Circuit?
So we were conscious across the 4 buildings that we had 2 buildings whose leases were expiring around the same time and another 2. And so as to, I suppose, minimise any excess floor space that we would need if we, for example, went into a single building with 1 lease, we, after some work, settled that a precinct model would suit us well. Admittedly, we've got 4 buildings and it does mean that staff do need to move from one to the other. Going from 4 to 2, which were in very close proximity, was a much better solution for us. But I might get you, Michael, to talk through the process in a little bit more detail, if you don't mind.
Thanks, Murray. Chair, I'd just also like to say the current arrangement for the building that we're talking today, we're still in an open procurement process. we're at the final stages of lease negotiation, so there may be some elements that are best placed in the in-camera hearing. But overall, the precinct model, as Marie suggested, was really about sort of identifying buildings that were available. Sorry.
I appreciate the precinct model, and I think we all accept that a precinct model is probably the way to go. I'm more interested in how you came to the conclusion that this particular building was the most appropriate. What was the process you went through to end up with?
So we undertook a competitive process. And under that competitive process, we had a selection, weighted criteria, similar to a standard procurement, and working through that, looking at financial and non-financial risks, and the weighted scoring. This building was identified as the most, providing the best value for money for the Commonwealth and for the department.
And perhaps just to tease that out a bit further, what other options did you have at the time? In other words, were there other options, and if so, how many?
Within
in terms of single type buildings in the general location where you could still consolidate?
There were limited buildings, so we undertook a limited tender process with one other building. That was actually informed though by a previous procurement process that didn't proceed, and so we had relevant and recent market data to identify what buildings were available and suiting our expiries from an alignment perspective.
Okay, I'll go to my colleagues. Tanya, if you're on the line, I always keep looking to the board, but you're actually not on the board. But you're on the line. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, thanks. I think, obviously with the advantage of having had the private briefing, and I thank you for that. My question was just one that I put on notice in the private hearing alongside your own chair, just additional information relating to some of those below line costs that make up to the 13 million odd. So look forward to receiving that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. David, I'll go to you and then to Ash.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I think I'll probably share some of your concerns about what options were actually considered from the publicly available information. It looks like only 2 options were actively considered, of which one had some deep flaws in it, which for me is kind of concerning. I like options that are options rather than singular. But there was no consideration of the old tax offices. Big organisation left Civic. I'm just surprised that there's only the 2 options on the table.
At the time of our procurement and approaching the market, the information that we had available at that point identified these buildings as the ones that met our timeline. I don't have the information in front of me as far as when key decisions for other Commonwealth agencies were made on their leasing arrangements.
It just, for me, it just would have made sense to have gone through a more open process rather than just approaching the two particular sites, to effectively landlords. Just in terms of the staff we're talking about who will move into London Circuit, what's the percentage of staff that are attending the office at the moment? I know it's in a rough sense. I know it's different day by day, but if you could.
Yeah, so our current occupancy varies between 25% and on a really good day peaks at about 34%.
Yeah. And it's been hard because of all the disruption in Civic.
Yeah.
And you're so fortunate that there's going to continue to be that disruption to Civic for the next 2 or 3 years. So there's a good chance that it still may remain at relatively low numbers.
We expect that. I think there are outside factors that are driving people to work from home more. We are expecting that with the move into the offices, into the new buildings, the facilities offered in the new buildings has attracted people.
Attracting more people back in. But I guess one of the potential advantages of having a low percentage of staff attending the office is it probably makes it easier for you to manage transition. And so over the next couple of years, when you are moving staff between offices, you probably have less pressure on existing office space than you otherwise would.
Yeah, yes. I mean, at the end of the day, it is still quite a cultural change for staff. At the moment, we have staff on a 1-to-1 desk staff ratio. In moving to these new buildings with a reduced footprint, we are moving to a 7-to-10 staff desk ratio. Or desk staff ratio. So that does mean that there has to be some cultural change in the way we work and the way staff engage with the workplace and things like that. But you're right, the occupancy rate gives us that flexibility when we do this transition that we're able to manage the movement of staff.
And it would be easier but not perfect, obviously, to temporarily relocate staff, knowing that there's going to be sufficient space to do so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also just think with people working from home, they've just learnt to be a bit more flexible as well with moving around. They can work at home, they can work at work. It might be they need to move on to a different floor for a short period of time. I think everyone has become much more used to being flexible in that sense, and everyone also now carries their own device with them, whereas in the past the device was attached to the desk, so you had to go there. So tools have changed as well. We've got, much better connectivity where we can have meetings online. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that was far more limited for the department.
When the department landed on a precinct model, was there really seriously another option for a building to move into?
Originally, and the work to move staff, commenced some years ago, and we were very keen at that time to move into a single building. But when we looked at when leases expired and when people needed to move, and decisions were made about not wanting to extend, or we couldn't extend leases further, it became very clear that it was going to have to be a two-stage process, and thus the precinct model became the obvious choice. And with that, it was let's at least make sure we've got buildings in reasonably close proximity to each other to encourage the sharing of information and the like. Whereas at the moment, carrying your laptop or whatever it is from Nishi to Allinga on a boiling hot day is not conducive for that collaboration. And
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair.
Ash?
I'm okay, Chair.
Right, okay. Can I go to the issue of the consultants and so on? TSA Riley and Cox Architects. Can you explain for anyone listening what their role is in this? I think most people might understand the architect's role, but more importantly, how were they engaged? Was there a tender process? Do they have a long-term contract with the department?
Thank you, mate. Chair, TSA were engaged under a competitive process through existing originally through an existing panel arrangement, and similar with Cox Architecture, off an existing Commonwealth panel arrangement.
So they're on the panel, and they put in a tender or a bid for the work, and they are then selected, I assume, based on suitability and cost?
So, again, through a competitive process based on suitability and price, based on quality of the team, experience with recent Commonwealth projects and their pricing.
It just followed a normal procurement
Standard
process.
procurement process.
And it goes through the evaluation process of value for money, and then you select the most appropriate.
And were they both also involved in the London Circuit building?
Yes.
So it was the same
Yes.
consultant?
Yep.
And was that treated as a separate process, or was the process covering both buildings?
Their procurements covered both buildings for the delivery of the precinct solution.
Okay, so it was only one process
Yes.
for the two different buildings.
Yep.
I think I can ask this in this part of the hearing. The landlord for London Circuit and the landlord in this case in the One City Hill project, are they two different landlords, or was it the same landlord?
Two different landlords.
Okay. And with respect to the staff that are going to be employed at both, in this case in both buildings, do we have it's probably in the report and I may well have missed it, but how many staff in total will we be talking about?
So in total, there's just over 1,900 that will be moving, but I don't have the splits immediately here in front of me.
Just to the new building, or including the London Circuit?
So
Both?
yeah, that's the Canberra-based staff. We've got about 1,900 Canberra-based staff.
Right.
We've got approximately 600, just under 629 work points that we will have in 7 London Circuit, and we're estimating we'll have approximately 895 work points in One City Hill.
So that's not the staff numbers, though.
But that's the work points. Noting that staff are in a flexible work arrangements, that gives us roughly how many staff we would expect to fully occupy the building.
So the floor space obviously is bigger in One City Hill. Do the two buildings have an end of life lease time that coincides, or do the leases run out at separate times?
No, they're separate. The lease for 7 London is 15 years, and the proposed lease for One City Hill is 20 years.
Okay. And I quite often drive past there when I drive up Northbourne. The place is at the moment under construction from every angle. I think Mr. Smith might have alluded to that. Is that going to be disruptive? Because I assume that's not going to end in the immediate future. It's going to be there for a while. How will that impact on the staff getting there, and even perhaps the public that need to get there? Is access to the building going to be relatively easy?
It won't be any worse than what we have currently experienced in Allinga Street and on Northbourne Avenue.
Okay. It won't
So
be...
ultimately, it will get much better.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the thing that we're mindful of is around One City Hill, not only have you got the works that are happening on Commonwealth Avenue and the bridge, but you've also got the light rail construction happening. By the time we move in, we're expecting, which is into 2 years, that most of that work will have completed by the time we're expecting to move into One City Hill, we hope, with ACT government.
Okay. And I assume that based on your staff consultation process, did any issues arise that changed the nature of the fit out?
Staff, yep.
There was particular concern around acoustics, and that was based on the current fit-outs at Allinga Street particularly. So we have an acoustic engineer engaged under the project, and so we looked at that of how we could separate open plan work spaces with our fixed offices and the like. So that was something that really drove the importance of acoustics in the project, and making sure that there's soft furnishings and people can have those private conversations that they need, and also the quiet spaces. And then we also have neurodivergent spaces, so quieter spaces, low light spaces, spaces that you can adjust to the needs that you need. And those certainly came through the consultation that the internal team ran.
Okay. In answer to Mr. Smith's question earlier on, I think you used a figure of somewhere between 25 and 34% of occupancy. Would that be normal, or is that because of the disruption and to coming into the CBD at the moment?
Those numbers, sorry, you're right.
I think we've seen a decline with the disruption, with all of the work around the city. But we've probably settled at that for at least 12 months. When we first moved to flexible work and working from home, the ratios were probably a bit higher. And we're really hoping that with the improved amenity, better workspaces, opportunity for more collaboration, breakout areas, compared to our current fit out, particularly in Alinga and Northbourne Avenue, I think coming to work will be a much nicer experience generally.
So, based on what you're currently seeing, and I don't know if it was answered in respect to Mr. Smith's question, is the desk to staff ratio perhaps too high, given that you're only talking of less than 50% of the staff being in the office at any one day?
I mean, there was a lot of staff engagement and consultation around the 7 to 10. We have seen indications that better facilities in a building do increase people's opportunities to come back into the office, and we are expecting that we will get an increase. We also need to be mindful that there are areas within our department that go through surge, and that due to the complexity of the work or the policy or what they're working on, they may be required to come in more. And so we have to come up with a balanced ratio for desk to staff in order to accommodate a number of factors. And the 7 to 10 seems to be a good place to land. Yes, I mean, you look at our data, we do see our current occupancy low, but we do want to be able to provide the mechanisms in which to allow staff to be a bit more hybrid about their working, and all indications are that there will be an increase once we come into the new buildings because of the facilities we're offering.
It's also worth noting that we're reducing the net little area for the department from approximately 40,000 square metres to 23,000 square metres, based on that 7 to 10 ratio and some efficiencies that we'll get from a new construction of a fit out.
I think our per square metre at Nishi is 18 square metres per person.
At Nishi it's 15.
15.
Yeah.
Northbourne it's 19. So
I thought there was an average of about 18. so we will also reduce down to 14.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, which would be roughly 12.5 across both buildings on the precinct.
All right, look, I don't have any other questions. Once again, David, Ash, do you have anything else before we wrap this up? Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I thank you all for your attendance here today. You will be sent a copy of the transcript of your evidence to the committee, and if you feel you need to make any transcription changes, please contact the Secretariat. With that, once again, thank you, and I declare this public hearing closed.